All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Growing Up Queer and Christian, the Facebook Live. We're also streaming live on the Choircast network on YouTube. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure everything is streaming and turn my volume off so I'm not talking over myself. And yes, this is the webinar for Seth Showalter, Growing Up Queer and Christian. I'm Matthew J. DiStefano. I'm one of the owners. I like to joke with Keith that I'm the senior associate. He's my junior associate with Choir Publishing. That's a joke, of course. And I'll tell you that we have Choir Academy, which we are in the midst of launching. So, we're doing that right now. We're figuring out our way along the way, as we did with choir. I'm sure Ralph did 7 years ago when he launched the company itself. Now we're stepping into new territories and we're figuring out as we go. So we are excited and proud to announce Choir Academy. We're launching with Seth as our prototype. What's the right word? I mean, it's kind of the guinea pig right now. I'll be
I was
honest with
going to say guinea pig.
you're kind of the guinea pig. We're testing it out. This is science, right? So we gotta do it one way and test the hypothesis and reevaluate as we go. But it's not just Keith and I. We have Amber Picota. Amber, you're going to be running Choir Academy as the director. So introduce yourself, and then I'm going to have you introduce Seth, and we're going to get going to talk about what it's like to grow up queer and Christian, what Seth, your story has been like, and I'm sure I can resonate with some of it for sure, being LGBTQ myself, and then we'll hit the ground running. Amber, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell them a little bit about yourself and why you're excited to be the director of Choir Academy, and then we'll get going with Seth.
Yeah. So I'm Amber Picota. I think you already said that. Never mind. But I am a former pastor of over 10 years, and I am an author myself. And I am really excited to come on board with Choir Academy. I'm excited about, amplifying voices that are saying really amazing things that the world really needs to hear right now, and empowering people to use their voice. I think that all of this is so exciting. And I'm just like really stoked about what the future holds for Choir Academy. And as the firstborn child, Seth, when you said he's the guinea pig, it made me think of the firstborn child. And so, you learn as you go. But I'm really thrilled that it's Seth who got to be our first, and it's been really awesome building this course with him, and also setting up for this amazing webinar. Seth has such a great story, and I love that he has used all the things that he's experienced growing up as a gay man in a Christian environment to turn around and help other people. I love that because it's like nothing is wasted and you get to help so many other people. Seth is the author. He is an author with Choir, and I'm going to go ahead and let him tell you a little bit about himself, and this is going to be great. So Seth, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm really excited. And quite frankly, I'm honored to be, quote unquote, the guinea pig for Choir Academy. I'm quite honored to do that. And I believe that the course and the message that I'm putting out is really important right now, given what's going on in our culture and in our society. And I'm really excited for the messages that are being put out, because I think that my story can really relate to a lot of people right now specifically.
Right. Definitely. So can you go ahead and set the stage for us and share a little bit about, what you went through in order to be able to, get to where you're at today?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I was born and raised in a really small town in Northwest Missouri. And so when we talk about rural and we talk about primarily very little diversity, I grew up in it. And growing up, I realized, like in my adolescent years, that I was different than other people, that were my age. and pretty quickly realized that I was but coming to terms with attractions that were different than my peers. And that kind of set the course for an internal conflict because it did not jive with the religious foundation that I was born and raised to value and attribute most of my life. And it created this really big interplay in my life that I didn't know what to do. And that led me down a path that really resulted in a lot of destruction in my life because I didn't know what to do. It eventually led me into a gay conversion therapy program. And through that, I wrote a journal when I was in the program. And through that, I decided to publish a book. And that book is entitled Finally Free, A Surrender to Authenticity. And thanks to Matthew and Keith Giles, through Quire Publishing, I was able to publish my book, Finally Free, A Surrender to Authenticity, in which case I actually recounted my entire experience through that journey and what that was like. And because of what I have been through, I think I'm uniquely qualified to actually speak into what some of these experiences are like. And because of that experience, I actually became a therapist. I actually became a licensed clinical social worker and work today to try to make a difference in other people's lives. And that's why I'm really motivated to develop a course that can really help people today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure we have like a whole mix of people who are going to be joining us today. And I think it's really important for obviously there's going to be people who join us that are, have a similar experience as yours, but also what I'm interested in seeing is more and more people that are willing to sit down and listen to the stories of those who have been through this type of situation. Like, for people to be a good ally, you have to sit with other people's story and listen, because there's no way to know someone else's struggle unless you listen to them, because that's not our experience. So my hope is that there will be, even pastors and other mental health professionals that are going to be able to learn from you and be able to take care of the LGBTQ people in their lives better, to love them better, and to make safe environments for our young people who are growing up as well.
That's really the hope.
Yes.
And I'm trying to provide content that not just speaks to the LGBT community, but also speaks to allies, that also speaks to pastors and speaks to the larger community, so that we can come together to make a difference and actually help people. So I'm trying to hit that demographic as well, because I think it's really important, especially right now.
Yeah, so that's so important. So maybe you can share a little bit about how being raised in the context of Christianity specifically shaped your opinion of yourself and your self-worth, your identity. Like, prior to healing and reconciling your identity with your faith, how do you think it was unique for you to grow up in a Christian environment, and how that affected your self-worth and self-image?
Well, in several ways. So let's talk about it. Yeah. There's a few things I want to mention just off the top. And one of them was, when you start experiencing an attraction that falls different than what the Bible and what your community says is okay, you start to feel like you don't measure up. And essentially, put simply, you start feeling like you're not good enough. And that's really what I felt at my core, was that there was something inherently wrong with me, and that no matter what I did, I couldn't change it. And I kept trying. And this is illustrated in my book, that I kept trying harder and harder and harder to make myself straight. And it just wouldn't work. And so there's this inherent feeling of just not measuring up. From prayer to prayer, pastor to pastor, counselor to counselor, no matter what I did, it wouldn't make a difference. And because of that, I started to experience feelings of shame, because the church message was that having these attractions, that having same-sex feelings, was inherently wrong. There's this inherent feeling, because of that, this dissonance within you that causes you to feel like you are not good enough. And because of that, you start feeling the sinking sensation within you, in your gut, that you're letting not only yourself down, but that you're letting others down as well. And I felt this at my core. In fact, I was humiliated that I was experiencing same-sex attraction within the context of Christianity, because it was not okay. It was never accepted, and it was never supposed to be okay. In fact, I was taught that it was diametrically opposed to what I was informed was supposed to be okay. And along with that shame came this guilt, this nagging sensation that I had done something wrong, or that I had let someone down. It's like this internal alarm bell within you that keeps going off, letting you know that something is not right. And, this feeling can pop up for a variety of reasons, from a simple mistake to a simple moral or ethical slip up. The guilt I was experiencing, I eventually learned was misplaced. And it was essentially being perpetuated by the homophobic viewpoints that are throughout the Bible, specifically 6 verses, but it also is seeped in the rhetoric of everything that Christianity teaches and promises as good. Homosexuality falls outside of that. And because no matter what I could do, I could never actually be straight. I could never actually meet the standard of being good enough. There was a sense of failure. Seeing as I was unable to prevent myself from having these attractions, no matter what I did, I was failing. I was failing as a Christian. I was failing as a human being, to my friends, to my family, and to myself. I was a disappointment. So I was not meeting other people's expectations. And because of my origin, and honestly, because of who I am, I wanted to meet other people's expectations and other people's standards. And I couldn't do it, because no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't change who I was at my core. And that all of these things, not measuring up, shame, guilt, failure, the sense of failure, and not meeting other people's expectations, was compounding to this sense of just defeating my self-esteem, defeating my self-worth, making me feel like I was just simply not good enough.
Right. Something that you just, I think that it's really important that you're able to share with so many about what your experience was, because we can't change it unless we hear and we sit with these stories. And so I know that it can be heavy for some people, but I think it's really, really important to just sit with that. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing, this really sensitive stuff with us. I really, really appreciate that. So I'm wondering if you would share a little bit about, like, most of us have we are aware that within the Christian culture, there are certain, like, gender roles, ideas of, like, hey, this is what meant, this is how you're a man, and this is how you're a woman, like, this is feminine, this is masculine. And a lot of times that is put on people, like, we grow up with this subconscious belief that's interwoven all throughout the culture of Christianity. And so, as growing up in the middle of that, would you say that you fit well within that gender role, or did you buck against it and experienced bullying or judgment for that?
So when it comes to gender roles, I felt like I didn't meet the standards that was expected of a lot of guys my age, specifically that I was athletic, that I met the standard of athleticism, of being macho, of being very, masculine. I was masculine presenting enough to pass, but I wasn't enough in regards to meeting the standards that was needed in a small town. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, and I grew up in a really small town as well. And so, you know, even though I'm a straight woman. Like I didn't meet that either. I was sort of like what they would, for lack of a better word, what people would call a tomboy. So that pressure can be so immense. It's like, you need to behave like a lady. You need to do this. Like you're not acting like a little young lady, a good Christian woman. And so for so long, trying to fit in and become something that I'm not. And it sounds like in a lot of ways you still had to do that, but in regards to, your sexuality, it looks like you had to try to fit in there. Now, for real quick, I meant to bring this up about the first question when you answered, because you talked about how you wanted to meet those expectations.
Oh yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to emphasize that is because of this. There are so many people who they would try to say that this is a choice. And it's crazy to me because like, if you could sit with somebody and listen, like you would know that you didn't choose this. Like, yeah, I chose for people to be mean to me. Like, and you literally wanted to meet these expectations. You wanted to, fix yourself, like, because you were convinced that you were broken. And so you just wanted to go ahead and, fix yourself, quote unquote. Even though, I will just, so that it's not taken out of context, there was nothing wrong with you, but you were made to believe there was something wrong with you. And you tried desperately to fix the problem and fit in. So to those who would say, it's a choice, it is a telling sign that they've never really sat with anybody's story. They've really never listened, because they would know that the struggle was so real and it was painful for so many people.
Right. And if you really do think that it is a choice, I'm going to give myself a little promo here. If you really do think that being gay is a choice, I really want to encourage you to read my book and come back to me, email me at finallyfreecourse@gmail.com and tell me what I needed to do more.
Yeah.
Because I really would like you to do that, because I tried everything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who are indoctrinated within the Christian faith and find themselves having same-sex attraction, that find themselves and are gay, and do everything in their power to try to change that to meet the standard of Christian doctrine. We can't change who we are.
Right.
And a lot of us do so at our detriment. I mean, look at the statistics of the suicide rates among the LGBTQIA plus community. There is a reason why the numbers are what they are. It's because people keep trying to change. People keep trying to go through with what the church is recommending, and it doesn't work. It actually results in more trauma, anxiety, and depression.
Right. No, yeah, that's really important that you're, mentioning like the statistics there, and like the effects that growing up in an environment that condemns you has on someone's mental health. Like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. That's why I'm so glad that we're, working to try to push back against that and just kind of like shift the culture to, be a safe place. That's what I would love to see, is that places of faith could be safe places, which, like, of course it should be, but like it hasn't historically been.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah, please.
Amber, I love that you mentioned like listening to folks, and I'll just chime in. I know it's anecdotal, but I'm LGBT also, and believe me, spending 25 years in the evangelical church, you try to do everything you can to not be that, because you don't want to stand out. So you do, like, there's no praying it away that I've experienced. There's no wishing it away that I've experienced, because we tried. So again, like, tell me what else we are supposed to do. Like, believe us, like, we tried all we can. So if you got some magic, you got some secret sauce, you got some magic formula, go tell my 16-year-old self. I say that tongue in cheek, because again, there's nothing wrong with being LGBTQ, but you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, go tell that young man, because he ended up trying everything and nothing worked. So don't tell me to read the Bible. I know it better than most people. That I hate to sound arrogant, but that's just the reality. I don't know what that is. We got the Holy Spirit trying to beep us in, telling us we're wrong. I don't know. What is that? Someone's got like something going on. We tried everything we could. And so I'm sure you write, I mean, I know you write about this in the book. So like read the whole book. It's over 300 pages, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And tell Seth what he's supposed to do.
And I don't want to be straight, by the way. I'm very happy.
No, I know. This is more rhetorical.
I want you to tell me what I needed to do in that time, because I tried everything, as Matt, as we're pointing out here.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah. And, just about your book and how I would encourage people for sure. Like, I think it's really vulnerable, and to read those and like, well, I'm not publishing my journal or diary because people will be like, we need to surround her with help. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I say that because as a joke, but yours is so vulnerable, and it's really clear that you are wrestling to try to fit, to like, let me fix this problem, like, and to be able to read that and to not realize that, hey, this person did everything they could to try to fit this ideal, and if it was possible, it would have been. And I think that there are these isolated stories that I think are really dangerous and detrimental from people who they say, oh, well, I used to be, and now I'm not. And it's so dangerous and it's so damaging, because those voices end up being amplified by these high control religions, because they're like the poster child and whatnot. Yep. And it's really dangerous. And, I'm sure we could theorize about what really went on with them and whatnot, which is not the topic. But I just wanted to emphasize the fact that those isolated stories, they're so dangerous. And that's why I believe that it's so important for people to hear stories like yours, where this isn't a denial of like, okay, I'm just going to pretend real hard to not be myself and become this facade of a person. This is about embracing your true self, which, according to my belief, that you're, wonderfully made, so like personally, I'm like, God didn't make mistakes, like that's my beliefs on that. But at any rate, this transitions well to our next question, because you touched on it a little bit, but I do want you to expand some as well. Because you chose to enter a type of conversion therapy program, and it was like an intensive program, because you lived in the facilities as well, correct? And then so you chose this, and I would like for you to just share a little bit. Obviously, we did touch on the fact that you tried really hard to become fixed or whatnot, because of the pressure that existed around you to conform and be a certain way. But if you would please, share a little bit about the thought process that led you to joining this conversion therapy.
Yeah. So I need to be clear about a couple things. So part of the reason why I sought treatment was because I was drinking a lot. Because of the indoctrination I received from Christianity, followed up by the internal conflict caused by being gay, I was in emotional and psychological distress. So much so that I was using drugs and alcohol as a way of coping and numbing the pain that I was experiencing. So much so that my parents started to get very concerned and were very nervous that I was going to die. They were very, very concerned. And so I need to be clear and say that I didn't just go to a conversion therapy program. I actually went to a Christian, keyword there, Christian, drug and alcohol rehab facility that agreed to provide a 90-day substance use program that provided conversion therapy as part of their treatment modality. So I was receiving substance use treatment alongside conversion therapy. So it was a dual program, if you will.
Yeah.
So the reason why I made this choice, though, the reason why I didn't just pursue substance use treatment, but also pursued it alongside conversion therapy, was because I was in a deep and dark place. And I was so conflicted with my identity and doing everything in my power to ignore the conflict that I had reached a point that I couldn't avoid it anymore. I had kept avoiding it, avoiding it, avoiding it, and avoiding it, and avoiding it till eventually I couldn't do it anymore. I had to do something. And so conversion therapy was like a last ditch effort, kind of like a Hail Mary, if you will. I didn't know what else to do. When you feel pushed up against a wall with nowhere else to go, you begin to see dead ends as an escape. And so I decided to throw everything I had into what the church and my faith and my community believed was right. If I indeed had been called into the ministry, which I talk about in the book, but I had in fact believed that at the time, then this had to be the answer. God would respect that and he would heal me as a result. If only I had known that's not how any of this actually works.
Right. I just want to point out real quick how irresponsible it was of them, because you mentioned, you mentioned it in the book and you mentioned it just now, but like they weren't specialized. Even, I mean, conversion therapy in and of itself is vile and evil. However, also it's like I get the impression that their specialization was in drugs and alcohol abuse, and then they're like, yeah, we'll just, as a side note, we'll also do this conversion therapy, and I just think how careless they were with your well-being, and I hate that. But I think it's also a testament to people like, this is how messed up this is. It's like people who are unqualified performing a type of therapy that shouldn't even exist. So there's like layers here of crappiness. And I hate it on every layer. I hate it for you on every single layer. So yeah, anyways, so irresponsible. And now we get to shift a little bit. I think, a lot of times we want to skip over the part where we sort of like unpack the heaviness and the uncomfortable parts, but that's the opposite of what we need to do. We have to go there. And but with that being said, we are going to shift a little bit, and I would like for you to share a little bit about a time when you were obviously shifting from, hey, I think I'm broken and I'm trying to fix myself, and then an acceptance and a shift towards something more healthy for yourself. So I wanted to know, could you share with us a little bit about some of the ways that you coped, like when you were shifting from these feelings of like self-hatred, low self-worth, but when you shifted and you began to sort of like accept yourself and reconcile your faith with your identity at that time, what were some of your coping mechanisms? How did you start to restructure your mindsets about yourself?
Well, one of the main ways is I had to detox. And when I say
Oh yeah.
detox, what I mean is I had to take time away from the sources that were feeding all of the negative messages, which I'm not trying to say stop going to church, but that's kind of what I had to do. I had to really take stock and be like, this is not serving me right now. This is actually perpetuating more harm than it is good. In fact, I can remember walking into churches and having flashbacks, and it was causing more damage than it was helping. And, I needed time, I needed space. And so doing that was really, really helpful. But then as a therapist, there was actual coping strategies that I started implementing. And some of those included, cognitive behavioral therapy, like an approach known as cognitive restructuring, where I would essentially take some of the negative thoughts, right? Like for example, like the thought, I'm not good enough. And then I would literally sit with that thought and think about it and ask myself, you know what? Is this necessarily true? Is it true? Well, no. No, it's not. I believe it at times, but no, it's not. And how does this make me feel? Well, it makes me feel like crap. So do I really want to sit in this? No, I don't. It's not helping me. So why am I doing this? And what is the evidence that it isn't true? And I can go through and I can list all of the things, the accomplishments, the degrees I've gotten, the awards I've gotten, the people I know, all of the things that I'm doing to actually, lift myself up. And then I ask myself, if one of my friends reached out to me with a thought like this, what would I tell them? Right? And I would tell them that they are good enough. But why? Why would I tell them that they're good enough, but I don't have that for myself? Why is that? Maybe I should think about that. Why is it that I show more grace to my friends than I don't show to myself? And if I'm showing more grace to my friends than I am myself, then what is a more helpful, more constructive thought that's going to help lift me up than tear me down? And I started actually using that approach with a lot of the thoughts that I was having that were really hurting me. And then to help regulate my nervous system as I moved forward, because my nervous system was like this for a very large portion of my life. And at times I'm still using this skill, by the way. It's a mindfulness approach where I recognize my inner experience, because we cannot change what we do not acknowledge. We first must recognize, right now, I don't feel good. Right now, I am anxious. Right now, I am pissed. And I'm just going to recognize that for what it is. And then I'm going to connect with my body. I'm going to locate where that emotion is within my body. And I'm going to start using box breathing into that emotion, holding it, and releasing from that portion of my body as if I'm feeling the tension roll off my shoulders. And I'm going to practice this skill as a way of regulating myself into the current moment. And using those skills really helped me move forward. So that's kind of what I used.
Yeah. I like that you use the term detoxing because quite frankly, these ideas are poisonous, and it's not an exaggeration at all. I think that that's so valuable that you saw that you had to cut off some of these voices that were spewing toxic things. And very often we just let ourselves get inundated by all these crappy messages everywhere, and to just take charge of that and be like, nah, I'm going to create some distance between myself and that idea, even with our social media and stuff like that. Now, would you say that also you made a conscious effort? So you were distancing yourself and detoxing from some of these harmful ideas. And I'm assuming probably some people maybe that you had to distance yourself from, and
Yes.
Environments as well, but would you say that there were people and environments that you said, okay, I'm distancing myself from that toxic, but I'm going to bring into my life some good and some people who are speaking live, who are going to build you up?
Yes. And I talk about this at length in my course.
Yes.
Because building a supportive network of people that can lift you up is absolutely critical. We can't just remove, we have to also replace. So we have to actually bring people in that are going to support us rather than just tearing us down. If we only detox, and so I'm really happy you mentioned that. If we only detox, if we only remove, it leaves a major hole, it leaves a major gap in our lives of people and support systems that we don't have, that voices that we need to hear, and people that can actually help us. And so building that support network of people who are affirming, who are lifting you up, who do accept you for who you are, and who are a positive voice is really, really important.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you. So I would like for you to like address like so those who are watching who are LGBTQ individuals, what kind of positive ways would you mentioned a little bit about how you coped. How can you offer them some suggestions as to how they can begin to try to find the support they deserve? How do they find these positive communities? How and how do they connect with people who are going to be, obviously a positive voice that's going to speak life over them. So obviously they're going to be hopefully trying to distance themselves from these toxic messages. But what kind of ways can you suggest for them to find people that are like-minded and supportive and good positive people?
Well, I mean, this is specific to the LGBTQ community,
Yes.
but most communities have like an LGBTQ IA+ center, maybe within the town locally or regionally.
Yeah.
And I would really start looking at locations like that,
Yeah.
places that have activities, places where you feel safe. I also would look at organizations that fly the pride flag, places that feel safe, that are places where you will be affirmed and accepted for who you are. And then if you do remain in the faith, because know that just because we accept ourselves does not mean that we have to completely leave the church. It doesn't mean that we have to divorce the church. Some of us can choose that. That's perfectly accepted. And I have for a lot of my life. But that doesn't mean that all of us have to do that. And so what that can look like is trying to find churches that are affirming. And I do want to just put a little bug in everybody's ear. There is a thing known as gay theology or queer theology. And I talk about this at length in my course, but it is a really big thing. And I really want to encourage that you look into that if you have not and want to be affirmed through your faith, because it's actually a really helpful way to view the Bible, view scripture, and actually be affirmed for who you are. But ways to get involved would be like LGBTQIA+ centers, libraries often host activities that are affirming, and trying to find a church or faith community that is supportive.
That's so valuable. Like, I didn't even know some of those resources existed. And I'm so glad I'm sure other people don't either. So I'm so glad you were able to share that. And, I think that I appreciate how much you just kind of meet people where they're at, because some people are going to realize that they're not in a healthy, safe environment, maybe in whatever church they grew up in or attend, and that they need to walk away. And then there are those who want to continue in their faith and to be able to just meet them where they're at. I just appreciate that so much. And I'm sure so many people do, because finding a healthy church might be hard for those people who do want to continue in their faith, but to find an LGBTQ affirming church that has doctrines that affirm their identity, that's going to be huge for them.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you so much for that. Now you touched on this a little bit, but I'm interested in how you were able to reframe some of those thoughts. And let's just be clear, the thoughts and beliefs that you had that you weren't good enough, that you were broken, that you were damaged, those existed as a direct result of the homophobic culture within Christianity, because these ideas don't just exist isolated in conversion therapy.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is permeated throughout. And without even saying those exact wordings, it's said by leadership and by Christian leaders a million times in a million different ways, whether people realize it or not. But how did you sort of like begin to reframe those thoughts of worthlessness and the feelings of self-hatred toward yourself, to just sort of like shift that to begin to embrace who you are, embrace your identity, and have a self-worth and confidence.
hmm Well, the first thing I had to do is I had to evaluate. Okay, I want to be clear on this because I'm not saying that we judge our friends, but we have to evaluate whether our friends are lifting us up or tearing us down.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to evaluate the effectiveness and actually support of the people in our lives. And one of the things I had to do was actually evaluate my support network.
Yeah.
And are these people serving me or are they hurting me? And I had to remove people that were tearing me down. Now, when that it was possible, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not always possible.
Um,
So keeping that in mind,
Yeah.
Not always possible, but when you are able, right, making choices that are going to help support you in that regard. Support is everything. And then also looking at our exposure to the messages that we're receiving. So avoiding messages that are overly negative or putting us down. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I often like to go into the darkness and know what is being said, and I want to know, all of the bad all the time. I like to kind of like live in that world for a little bit. It doesn't help us. It really doesn't. So one of the things I want to encourage is, how did I shift from this feeling of worthlessness and self-hatred? Is I had to stop feeding the worthlessness and self-hatred machine by removing and avoiding messages that were overly negative and tearing me down, because we are essentially what we consume. If all we if all we're doing is feeding ourselves negative messages, we're going to feel negative. So start feeding yourself positive things. Start feeding yourself affirming messages that are going to make you feel valued, loved, and supported, rather than all of the negative. And if you're able to remove yourself, I want to mention this because I said, if you are able to remove yourself from individuals that tear you down, please do. But if you're not able to, because of, family situations or certain things like that, and there's a lack of acceptance, I want to encourage you that the one thing that I have found to be helpful is a thing called locus of control. And that's where we start looking at focusing on what is in your control and trying not to focus on what is outside of your control. And that's really important, especially in this election season. I mean, in this new next 4 years. But like focusing on what is actually within our realm of what we can actually control, and letting all the other stuff go, because I can't control it. And feeding it and worrying about it does not help me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus in on what actually helps me. And I'm going to do that through feeding myself positive messages, using that cognitive restructuring that I was talking about earlier, and really understanding my worth and my value as a human being, my understanding my personal value.
Right. That's so good. You mentioned how you I can't remember exact wording, but my understanding was that you found that you could get stuck in that like negative cycle, thinking that as an Enneagram 7, I'm the opposite. Where so like the toxic positivity message, like I, on the other hand, could easily get stuck in, oh, we're just not going to think about that. We're just not going to think about that. I'm just going to put that over here. Let's just throw a party real quick so that we don't have to think about sad things. And so I love that there's this balance that you talk about of like, no, I can't stay in this place of darkness. I don't think you said darkness, but that's what it made me think of. It's like, that where probably you're telling yourself things about yourself that are not helpful or beneficial at all. And then there's this tension between, no, we can't stay over here. You get to acknowledge it, but then, being able to find positive messages that speak into your life. So, that balance is so important, because on the other extreme, that's not helpful either, because it's just denying and, disconnecting with how you're really feeling about that too. So yeah, that's some of our problem, at least. So now this is so important to me, and I would love it if you were able to. I'm sure that there are people on this call that are LGBTQ queer people, who grew up in Christian families, Christian environments, who they deal with probably really heavy feelings of self-hatred and worthlessness. Now, if you could address them and you could say anything to them right now and summarize it to just speak some hope into their lives, what would you say to them? What would you address them?
Don't give up hope. No matter what anyone else thinks, you do not need to change for anyone. I know that this is tough and difficult, and quite frankly, it's excruciatingly painful. However, what your family thinks is not your fault. You have done nothing wrong. You are nothing wrong, and you do not need to be fixed. Anyone that even uses that word in the context of talking about you as a human being is off base. Please hear me when I say that you do not need to hate yourself, because you have nothing to hate. The hatred you feel you need to perpetuate against yourself is coming from other people's opinions and judgments and bias. And they are rooted in that person's personal beliefs, not yours. You do not need to fall prey to other people's values, but learn what is most important to you. And right now, you are what is most important.
That's really beautiful. And I want to add on to that just for a moment, because I know that so many have grown up in the church and this is really important to them. And as a pastor / former pastor, I just want to say that, you're worthy of love. You're worthy of acceptance. And anybody who tried to make you feel like you were not worthy, they're wrong. They're simply wrong. And you are wonderful, and the world needs you, and you're valuable, and you were created on purpose for a purpose. And I think you're absolutely wonderful the way you are. So just, if you needed to hear a pastor tell you that, now you have.
Thank you.
So now I wanted to ask you if you would address a different demographic, if you will. We have we touched on just a little bit about how this message and really needs to be completely taken seriously and absorbed by faith leaders in order to make churches healthier and safer for the LGBTQ young people who are growing up, and even not so young people, because not everybody realizes at a young age that they are gay. So I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people my age still figuring things out, So, but regardless, I would love to see that culture shift and become safer. So if you could say one thing to Christian pastors and or faith leaders in regards to how they can care for the LGBTQ plus individuals that are in their congregations, and how they can make their places of faith safe for them, what would you say to them today?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Right.
I'll try to just tap the surface here.
Yeah.
One, don't judge them. Don't judge them. Instead, listen to their story. And specifically in regards to me, don't judge me until you listen to my story. And after you listen to my story, or you listen to the other person's story, don't try to change them. Accept them for who they are and love them the same way that they will love you back. Because the message in the Bible, the message of Christ, is about love. It is not about judgment. read your own Bible. It is never about changing people. It's about loving people. And that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you so much. That is really awesome. I was just now seeing the comments. All along, I haven't seen them. This is awesome. I love that. Okay. So, yeah, that's a lot to unpack. And quite frankly, I have been meeting more and more faith leaders who are being really intentional about trying to shift the culture in their churches. So I love that. I love to see it, and I would love to see more of that. So this is definitely the type of message that needs to be heard by pastors, heard and taken seriously. And taken action. It doesn't do any good to be an ally or attend a webinar or take in new information if that doesn't bring change around it. So yeah, for pastors and leaders who are listening and they are actually taking the time to sit down and hear the stories, but not doing anything with it, what are you doing? Come on. Let's start to shift some things. So yeah, this is really awesome. So thank you so much, Seth. Like, I know that there's so much more. This is an amazing webinar. It's a huge resource, so practical about offering people resources and like coping and like skills. I love that. And I know that there are people who they want to go deeper and they need to go deeper, because when you've grown up in the thick of all that, there are so many different, you know, things that to unpack and process. And when it comes to healing and accepting your reconciling your identity with your faith, as you mentioned so many times, it's a little bit of a journey. It's a little bit of a process. And you know, I this is why I appreciate so much that we're being able to work together right now. And for those of you who are on right now, I want to go ahead and just make this information available to you. We are releasing a course. Seth has done such an amazing job. He's worked so tirelessly, and we are releasing a course called Surviving Christianity. And this course is for a few different groups of people. And we've touched on this a little bit. It is obviously very much something that would be amazing for those of you who grew up in the Christian church who are LGBTQ. This is obviously, you talked a little bit about the journey and how, you know, you shifted and began to recognize your self-worth and have some healthy self-love. But yeah, it is a process. And throughout this course, you sort of take people on a little bit of a journey. And I'm actually really, really excited about how it's going to impact so many people's lives. And the other group of people that we talked about are people who are faith leaders and the mental health professionals and allies. Also, well, parents of children and teens who might be LGBTQ, which you should be ally as well. There's a little bit of an overlap. But like, it's not enough to just say like, oh yeah, I want to be an ally. If we don't start reprogramming, like if we don't start taking in resources that allow us to be supportive, and it's all just talk. It's a bumper sticker. It's, you know, wearing a colored shirt and solidarity, but those things don't actually cause change. Things like this course causes change, because this equips people to actually be really practical with the environment around them. So this course, Surviving Christianity, is going to be so powerful and so important for people. And right now we have a promotion right now, because this is our pre-launch. We have $10 off through the end of the week, and which is Wednesday. And right now, people can go ahead and register and save their spot. When people are registered, they're going to be added to a Facebook group that's going to be like a little mini community of people who can support one another and build one another up. And honestly, I just see this as the beginning of such a beautiful journey for so many people that are going to be enrolling in this course. I love that. So, this is really great. I'm so excited for those who are going to be embarking on this journey. And I'm so thankful that you were able to join us tonight, sharing with so many people and helping so many people. I love that. And I thank you. I commend you for that, Seth. One more thing I want to mention about the course is that the course is, it pairs, it goes along with the book. Yes, finally free. And when you register for the course, you do get a PDF free of the book. Now, for those of you who are need a paper book, not pointing at myself here. When you register, go ahead and grab that book. That way you have it out of the way. The official launch is going to be coming up in the first week of December. So you have a little bit of time to go ahead and order your book, get that squared away, and get ready to start everybody together. And that way, it's like a fun little club. And that, we talked about finding support. This is a great resource, for those who are distancing themselves from the negative, the toxic messages, and looking to, fill their life with voices who are saying good, positive things that build them up, affirm them, and help them, validate that good self-worth, that good self-love that we'd love to see bloom and blossom within them. So thank you so much, Seth. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you sharing with so many people.
Thank you.
This is awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you both.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much to everybody watching. And if you have any friends who are pastors, allies, LGBTQ, please make sure and make them aware of this. He said the link isn't working. The link isn't working. Let's see.
It should be working. I don't know why
It looks like you got it.
I checked it on a couple devices. It should be working.
Yeah,
or
Lisa,
you could just go to you could go to choiracademy.com, QUOIR academy.com, and then you could find the course Surviving Christianity. From now to the 27th, it's 20% off. That link should give you the 20% off.
Yeah. And Lisa, I tested the link as well. It worked for me. So yeah, if you can't get the link to work for you, like he's just said, go to the Choir Academy website and you will see that there as well. So thanks so much. Yeah, all right, guys. Well, this was a wonderful evening, and we're so thankful to everybody who joined us, and I hope you have a really great rest of your week.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys.